With that, sir, over to you.
Well, thank you everyone, and thank you for, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me, and it gives me pleasure to be part of this webinar or training. And it's also good to speak to students because in my own experience of several years, I think that somewhere down the line, until and unless the youth don't take it up as this issues which affect society, little progress can be made. It is the youth who make the change, and I'm happy to be speaking to young people. And thank you also for thinking about this important topic. Human trafficking in India. First, let me define what is human trafficking. Human trafficking, and then I will also talk about the Indian scenario. Human trafficking is an organized crime. Uh, it happens in source, transit, and destination areas. Uh, every year, thousands of young children and girls get trafficked. Uh, till 2013, we did not have the data, but now we are getting data on these issues. Human trafficking uh, in India is on sex trafficking, forced labor, bonded labor, forced marriages, beggars, adoption rackets, surrogacies, and it is happening in different forms also in red light areas, in spas, in factories, in sweatshops, in different places. Uh, in terms of trafficking in India, uh, there are a lot of places where children are getting exploited. Mostly when we talk about trafficking, we talk about sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking, of course, we all understand because of the very sensitive nature of the crime. But in terms of labor trafficking, we don't realize it, or many a times we don't see it as a crime. There are thousands of young children and men and women who are forced to do work, uh, and and uh, and they are not paid wages. It involves, so trafficking involves not only sex trafficking but also labor trafficking. So that is important for you all to know. And uh, if we talk about labor trafficking, the different forms of labor trafficking are bonded labor, child labor, uh, forced labor situations, and also in terms of sex trafficking, we are seeing it in different red light areas, and the situation is exploding day by day. uh, India also, India is a source, transit, and destination. When I talk about source areas, it means that there are a lot of young children and women who are trafficked within India. Then we are also a destination and transit country. When we talk about destination, there are a lot of young girls and children and traffic victims who are procured from different countries. So we are a transit country also, and then destination where the victims of human trafficking are exploited. So India is a source, transit, and destination. Within the country, there is a lot of trafficking. I will come into that, but I'll talk about cross-border trafficking. We have a huge border with Nepal and Bangladesh, and every year thousands of young girls from Bangladesh border are trafficked to India, mostly to southern states and Maharashtra and other places, and also in Delhi, for sex trafficking and also for supply into massage parlors, friendship clubs, and other places. We also see a lot of trafficking happening from Nepal. There is, over the years, trafficking from Nepal has gone down now because for Nepali victims, other lucrative destinations have sprung up, that is mostly the Middle Eastern countries, but still we have a sizable amount of trafficking happening from Nepal. So we have a sizable amount of cross-border trafficking. Apart from Nepal and Bangladesh, we are also seeing an increase of trafficking from the East Russian countries, from where a lot of young girls are brought here for the sex rackets and the and various places of sexual exploitation. They are brought here and they are exploited. So it is a global nature. The crime is of global nature, and most of the countries surrounding us are affected by this crime. And India, being a democracy and also of a society where there is a lot of population, there is a huge demand into it, and therefore India is a destination country. So there are a lot of victims being procured from different countries. Apart from, when I talk about when I talk about trafficking from within the country, we are seeing an increase of traffic, and most of the notorious states in terms of huge amount of trafficking happening is West Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Assam, and Bihar, and all of these eastern states, Odisha. We see a lot of trafficking happening from eastern India, which is a matter of big concern. And then we also have trafficking happening from different places. Now, when we talk about trafficking, people do ask us, and when we meet the lawmakers, people do ask us, what are the numbers? In terms of numbers, till now, we didn't have any numbers. The only national level research which happened on human trafficking was in 2004, that was done by NHRC. And that NHRC report came out with some amount of data, and also the organized nature of crime. That report came out, and that report also talked about missing children and missing persons. Over the years since 2004, when there has been a lot of focus on missing children and missing persons, and when the Nithari case happened in 2009, there was another focus of the government of India, and the government of India constituted a committee to look into the missing children issues. And in 2013, in response to a petition filed by Bachpan Bachao Andolan in Supreme Court, Supreme Court gave a judgment, a historic judgment, a landmark judgment, in terms of that for every missing child, an FIR has to happen. Earlier, what used to happen was that when children used to go missing, police would just file a report, not an FIR. But since 2013, police are mandated to compulsorily register case. Even if the accused is not known, they have to register a case under kidnapping and abduction, and for every missing child. Now, this judgment has been implemented over the years, and now we are getting real-time data on the number of children going missing from the country. And you will be surprised to know that every year, more than 55 to 60,000 children and women go missing every year. And that's only the numbers which are getting reported. I would say that at least most of the states are now reporting at least 50% of the cases. So now we have an indicator as to the number of children going missing every year. We have the NCRB comes out with the data, and then NCRB, the National Crime Record Bureau data, bifurcates the missing children and women into children who continue to remain missing. And every year that number comes to 26 to 30,000 children who continue to remain missing. There are children who go missing and are found out, but there are children who continue to remain missing, are the children which are a matter of concern. And out of these children, more than 85% of the children are girl child. So you can imagine that where these children are going. When these young girls go missing, mostly they land up in places of prostitution or by trafficking rackets. Boys also go missing, but that number continues to be less, because it's only the number of missing children, boys, is mostly in the number from more than the girls is only in the state of Bihar, where there is traditionally Bihar has been supplying a lot of child labor. So, but across the country, that is the number. Some of the districts which are very notorious in terms of trafficking is South and North 24 Parganas, which report more than 40% of the trafficking happening in the country. So South and North 24 Parganas are the are the Sundarbans areas. It's in deep poverty and these places, and there's a lot of trafficking happening. So now we have detailed numbers also coming in. Of course, the number of rescues don't happen at that level, but at least the government now has a fair amount of understanding as to what the trafficking situation in the country is. Even for students who want to learn about such issues, they at least now have a fair amount of understanding with the National Crime Records Bureau data on missing children. The human trafficking, as I already said that it's an organized crime. When we talk about uh, organized crime means that there are a lot of people involved. There are complex number of people involved. There is someone who is a spotter, someone who is a recruiter, someone who is a transporter, someone who is an abuser, someone who is an exploiter. So for every crime of human trafficking, there will be a series of persons involved. There is someone who locates the young child in the village. There is someone who lures that young child by, luring their family that your child is going to get a good job, or mostly it happens by luring, or by luring a young girl out of a trafficker may profess love for the girl and they say that uh, let's go and get married. So there are different types of lurement which happens, and therefore due to lurement there are a lot of families, there are a lot of young girls who go out with the traffickers. There are also cases of kidnapping and abductions. So there is a recruiter in the village, then there is a transporter who knows and understands the travel routes, who will not get jittery when the police approach them. They are very well trained. They take the transporters are aware of where the law enforcement people are in the travel routes, in trains, in buses, and in various places. So they are well trained to take victims. They don't get jittery. And then there are people who are at the destination area, who are abusers, who are recruiters, and it's a completely a chain of traffickers. When the traffickers land up with a victim at the New Delhi railway station, there is someone to receive them. So the source area trafficker will just hand over the victim to the destination level trafficker, take the money and go back. And there is a huge amount of money involved. For the NHRC report came out with the financial details of trafficking for every girl. Nowadays, if a girl from West Bengal or Jharkhand is trafficked, or in from other state, they take at least 5 to 6 lakh rupees per child, and that amount of money can be in the red light areas, in the places of sexual exploitation. This amount of money can be recovered in just 5 to 6 months, by that by for every child every day, more than 10 to 15 customers daily, and then a night customer every day, amounting business of 10 to 15,000, and it creates havoc on the child. uh, the young girls have no rights. They are caged. They are in a situation where they cannot run away. They are exploited and they have nothing in hand. And when they are rescued, they are in a very dire states. We have an experience of rescue of more than 6,000 victims of human trafficking. And we have seen the amount of exploitation which happens. So that exploitation also on these young children, they are raped several times, sexually exploited, beaten up, and you name the crime and it has happened on them. So that amount of the exploitation is evident in most of the cases of trafficking. Then we also, this is the case of sex trafficking. When we see in terms of labor trafficking, we are seeing a huge amount of children being trafficked for domestic labor. Many a times we will see that these domestic labors are in people's houses, but they are in a case situation because the agent has paid an amount of money to the trafficker through the placement agency, and till that money is not recovered, the child has to work in that house. And therefore many a times these children are in a cage situation, and we get a lot of cases of children who are in domestic labor. Uh, if we talk about the current trends, we are seeing an increase nowadays with the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. We are seeing that most of the sex trafficking in the country is now going online, and online offers anonymity to the traffickers. In online, and traffickers are very well organized. They have taken to technology much earlier than we have taken to technology. They are well trained in technology nowadays. Even recruitment, we are getting cases that recruitment is happening through social media, Facebook and other social media, which a lot of young people are involved in. There is a trafficker uh, becoming friends and then offering tickets to come. So a lot of lurement is happening, and lurement in different ways. There is some agency which is offering for modeling. There is some agency which is offering for Bollywood actor. There is some agency. So there are a lot of ways in which these young girls are lured in social media, and we are getting a lot of these cases nowadays with the pandemic in place and restrictions of travel. We are seeing that a lot of online things are happening. Also, we are seeing that the whole business of sex trafficking has gone online. Earlier, there were red light areas. These red light areas are now diminishing because traffickers have taken to safe havens. They can now approach customers and solicit them through the internet, through websites, through WhatsApp, and then supply the pictures of these victims, and then the girls are supplied to in the hotels. So more earlier, we could go and raid the red light areas for search of victims, but now with all this business uh, coming into the garb of massage parlors, beauty parlor, friendship club, escort services, spas, and other forms of businesses, it is very difficult to find out the victims. So traffickers have have learned the technology and also learned the way to keep them anonymous, and it is very difficult to get the money trail. People are Victims are supplied in hotels. There are a lot of hotels who get involved into all of this, and there is no proof of exploitation for law enforcement because it happens very clandestinely. So we are seeing that amount of uh, use of technology when we talk about on when we talk about the ways in which online medium is now being used in terms of sexual exploitation and trafficking. Uh, how are we responding to that crime, and how is the government of India responding to the crime? Well, the government of India has come up with anti-human trafficking units in most of the districts of the country. Missing cases are getting registered due to Supreme Court judgment. Everywhere FIR is getting registered. AHTUs are trained investigation unit which are looking into human trafficking cases and cases of kidnapping and abductions. There is a lot of interstate cooperation happening due to the presence of anti-human trafficking units. Please understand that an investigating officer in a remote village in Sundarban will not have the resources nor have the technical capacity to undertake a raid and rescue in Mumbai and Maharashtra. So it involves a lot of interstate collaboration, and that is what the anti-human trafficking units are doing. We are also seeing in 2011 the Ministry of Home Affairs formed an anti-human trafficking cell within the Ministry of Home Affairs to oversee India's effort to combat human trafficking. And due to that, a lot of training of law enforcement officers, a training of judicial officers, training of prosecutors are happening. Uh, it, so and then the government runs various shelter homes programs for children, in which a lot of these victims, once they are rescued, they are sent. The government of India also has a helpline number for children that is called Childline, and Childline is 1098. That is the most effective helpline in case of children in exploitative conditions. And in every district now there is a child line 1098 number. So the child line is a response agency, and there are a lot of counselors and people who undertake these rescues, and they are there for support. So, and then there are the child welfare committees, the child protection unit. So now every district has a fair amount of people working on child rights within the government umbrella, and therefore there is a lot of support which can come out from the relevant agencies as well as the NGOs who are working on these issues. In terms of the rehabilitation program, our rehabilitation program continues to be in a very gray area, though in spite of 70 years, 75 years of our independence and modern India, we still don't have a proper rehabilitation program. The government of India is on the anvil of preparing new anti-trafficking legislation, comprehensive legislation on anti-human trafficking, which was earlier presented in Lok Sabha and got passed, but then the bill lapsed due to the parliament coming to an end. And in the new parliament, the bill is now going to be placed, and I hope that with the new legislation coming, comprehensive legislation coming in, there will be a rehabilitation will become a matter of right and not a matter of charity. So we are very hopeful with the new legislation, because the new legislation is bringing funds also and creation of various units for undertaking rehabilitation support. And then we also have a problem that many of the traffic cases, we see that it happens in source areas. So the source area police continues to search, and then many a times these victims are rescued by destination police. We seldom see that there are any partnership in them. So that is one of the major challenges which we are facing. And traffickers also know that law enforcement doesn't partner among themselves, and therefore they know that they can get away with the system. The lacunae in most of the cases is that traffickers know how to circumvent the system. They know that even if they are arrested, nothing will happen in the courts, because either they will bribe the law enforcement. Since it's an organized crime, there is money always there, and then they can also threaten the victim and bribe the victim, or sometimes issue threats, so that these victims don't come and testify before the courts. So it is a huge problem in terms of prosecution of such cases is a major challenge, because it involves a lot of partners. Victims have to come and testify after a long period of time when they have forgotten everything, and it becomes a major challenge for all of us. Now, so these are some of the challenges. Even in the court cases, we are seeing that am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible now.
So what happens is that many a times in terms of these prosecution of these cases, it's very difficult. uh, the traffickers also know that they can get away with it, and therefore it becomes a major problem for all of us, especially to get justice. What happens is that for the poor person, justice means that my child has come back. But for us, justice should be that these traffickers need to be convicted. Until and unless they don't get convicted, they don't get punished. The message is that you can get away with it, and that is sad. Uh, you can just imagine the pains and tribulations of parents whose child go missing. Just imagine that some family member in your house, a small child in your house, just goes missing in a park for 5 minutes, and you can imagine the pain which comes with it. It's a huge problem. The government of India is well aware of these problems, and there are, and it's a very sad thing that this is happening. Now I will also talk that since it's a huge crime, there is a lot of people need to be involved in awareness. And one of the ways I would also like, since you are also part of the National Service Scheme, the Rashtriya Seva Yojana, you can also form anti-human trafficking clubs in your university, and then and make people aware. A lot of young people need to be made aware to be safe online. A lot of young people need to be aware, and anti-human trafficking units can also play a lot of role in terms of awareness and sensitization. Youth can take a plan a Facebook page, or they can plan a social media campaign. A lot of things the youth can do, and across various universities, organizations like us at Shakti Vahini, we have been emphasizing a lot that the youth should come and join the fight against human trafficking through anti-human trafficking clubs. In fact, last year we had run a lot of programs with support from the US consulate in Kolkata, in which we partnered with a lot of university students, and we had a youth champions conclave. And the next time we have that conclave, we will certainly get in touch with your unit in terms of involvement of the youth in the fight against human trafficking. Now, so this is the overview. Apart from sex trafficking and labor trafficking, we also have trafficking for surrogacy. We have trafficking for adoption. In Haryana and Punjab, there is a different problem in terms of forced marriages situation due to female feticide. There has been a shortage of young marriageable girls across Haryana and Punjab and Western UP, and we are seeing a huge number of girls getting trafficked for marriage purposes. I don't say that all marriages are wrong in terms of if they are being brought here, but they should not be minors. They should not be kidnapped. They should not be brought here under force and duress. So in Haryana and Punjab, there is a huge demand of marriageable age girls, and that marriageable age, that demand is being met by trafficking of young girls through organized rackets and agencies which are involved in trafficking. Let me tell you that we have worked on this problem. In any village in Haryana you go, you will find that more than 20% of the youth are not married because of this huge social problem which happened of female feticide. The government says that the sex ratio is now stabilizing and improving, but please understand that the sex ratio which is the government is talking about being stabilized is at birth now. The sex ratio at the marriageable age is still very skewed, and therefore it will take another 50 years to get it in a situation where it can really be managed. So this is the amount of, in terms of forced marriages. We also have trafficking for organ trade and which involves kidney and other organs. And we are also getting all these reports from various places. Many a times poor people are brought here and their kidneys are removed and sold off to people, and they don't get money. So, and that situation is happening mostly from the North Bengal area, Nepal, and other places where there's a huge amount of poverty. And due to that, people are ready to give and donate their organs, but many a times they fall under the trap of the people who manage this trade. So the organ trafficking is also part of it. Now, what are the laws in terms of legislation? That is my last point, which I'm going to cover. In terms of legislation, we have an Immoral Traffic Prevention Act to deal with cases of sex trafficking. We also have the child labor law to deal with cases of child labor. We have a bonded labor legislation. And then there are several provisions in the Indian Penal Code to combat this crime. But now in 2013, due to the Nirbhaya case movement, we got penal provisions in human trafficking. Earlier, there was no definition of human trafficking, but now in section 370 of the Indian Penal Code, the definition of human trafficking has been brought in. And now the law enforcement are very clear, because it is a very important that law enforcement officers understand it. Earlier, since it was not in the Indian Penal Code, people would not, the law enforcement officers, the police would not understand human trafficking. We would say that this is a case of human trafficking, and the police wala would say that this is a case of child labor, sir. Or if we would say that this is a case of forced labor and forced marriage, and they would say that no, this is a case of just marriage and there is nothing called human trafficking. So it was very important that the definition of human trafficking to be included in the law, and that has been, we are happy that now it's in 2013 that it has been included within the Indian Penal Code. So that is the whole situation of human trafficking in the country. And I would be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Good evening, sir. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, I am. You are audible.
Good evening, sir. Sir, what do you think that how youth like us can bring a transform in the field of human trafficking, and what action they need to adopt for a better India to protect our culture and civilization, sir? Can you enlighten, please?
As I have already said, that the youth, and I have been also involved in these programs through our organization Shakti Vahini. And there has been a movement across the country of formation of anti-human trafficking clubs, and you know that the youth can play a big role in terms of in combating. I'll give you an example. Students of Delhi University got together in a bookmark campaign. They prepared about 5,000 bookmarks and distributed it in the library to giving a message on human trafficking. You know, what is more important is that our young people should understand these issues. Many a times, because they don't get an awareness on these issues, or they are not, they have never heard about these issues, there is a lot of lack of sensitivity and empathy. So this can be brought into our future citizens if they are aware of such amount of crimes which are happening in the society. And it is the youth who need to take the stand. And youth can play a big role in terms of social media mobilization, because a lot of awareness can happen through social media campaigns, which the youth can play an important role. In terms of making aware people in your communities, that is also an important area, because a lot of students come from different parts of the country. If you are trained, if you know about these issues, it will be easy for you to talk about these issues when you go back to your community. In our organization, we do have a lot of internships during the summer months. We do have a lot of internship for law students and young students to come and learn about these issues, because we know that if the young person understands this issue, at least that person will not be silent when that crime happens in his or her own community. At least that person will speak up. So the youth have a major role to play. But yes, of course, the National Service Scheme unit can also form an anti-human trafficking club, which can talk about all these things and create a Facebook page and make people aware. So these are the things which you can do. I work with a lot of young students, and for example, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Guwahati students prepared a comic strip on human trafficking and distributed it in various social media platforms. So such small initiatives can play a big role. For example, the North Bengal University, Law University, are reaching out to tea estates and doing awareness programs. So a lot of law students are doing programs of legal clinics, of making aware young families about the dangers of human trafficking. So a lot of things can be done, but yes, you need to focus on these issues, and these are very important. This is the third largest crime after guns and the drugs trade. Human trafficking is the third largest growing crime, and young people need to speak up and be aware and have empathy and sensitivity. The next question, please.
Sir, with regard to this continuous trailing question, I want to ask that, sir, as we know that there is women helpline 181, child helpline 1098, but sir, in case they are not responding, as it leads to the rise in cases, and we, any individual don't want to interrupt or indulge in any type of activity that we are seeing that it happen right now. Sir, what step the government have taken or they already initiated with regards to this form or
See,
with this?
1098 and 181 both take anonymous complaints. Uh, and these are now, they have become very technically, sound systems. If 1098, if you form, it doesn't go to an NGO, or it doesn't go to a, to a district level functionary. It goes to a call center. So if you call 1098, it will go to a call center and you will be given a complaint number. And you have the right to remain anonymous also. So you can complain about if any exploitation is happening by keeping anonymity also. And it is not so now that people don't respond, because most of these 181 and 1098 and also the police helpline numbers, they are all managed through professionally managed call centers. 1098 is the most responsive system in which we are seeing. Many a times, even when we suppose we rescue, we get a case of girl from West Bengal, and our organization works in West Bengal till to in various other states also. And many a times, suppose a girl from West Bengal we know that has been trafficked, the first agency which we inform is the child line, because they are there in the district and they know it, and they can collaborate and they can find out. So I think you will get a good response from child line.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Is there any other question, please? Young people should ask questions actually. Or any random reflections? So Mr. Priyanshu is asking that, does human trafficking only occur in illegal underground industries? No. Many a times nowadays we are also, what is happening is that in many of the garment industry, many of the cotton industry, lot of bangle industry, brick industry, we are now looking into the supply chains and understanding that whether forced labor has been supplied in these supply chains. So it happens in, of course, it happens in illegal and underground industries, but it can also happen in situations which are people who are part of the supply chain to a major industry. Labor trafficking is a big crime which is now coming up. It's a huge crime. Mostly we conflate it with thinking that it is a civil issue, not a criminal issue, because it's mostly about payment of wages. But still, we are finding a lot of use of slavery in supply chains of garment industry, cotton industry, and all of that. So, sir, what type of, Hitesh is talking of what type of trafficking can be found in countries like the United States? Of course, United States has been a leader in terms of combating human trafficking. It comes out with a US TIP report every year, which also positions India, and they have been doing a lot of work on human trafficking. But United States does have a lot of trafficking for sex trafficking. Though prostitution is banned in the United States, it happens in different forms, as in India, which is now happening through massage parlors, spa services, dance clubs, and other places. It's only in one district of Virginia that there we find that there is a legal prostitution allowed in the United States. Otherwise, it is banned. Prostitution is illegal. Do victims of human trafficking self-identify as victims of crime? Yes, that's an important question, actually. Thank you, Shivam, for that. And what happens is that mostly victims don't understand. Even in the times of this pandemic, what happens is that victims don't know that they are getting trafficked. Suppose during these times of adverse economic conditions, which is evident across the country now, and there is a lot of migrant labor who have returned, and there are people who will be trafficked, but they will don't know they are trafficked because they are going in search of jobs, and they don't know until and unless they land up in a trafficking situation, they don't know that they are trafficked. Even in cases of sex trafficking, when we rescue victims of human trafficking, they are very apprehensive of talking to counselors because they have been under a lot of trauma. You have to understand that a person, young girl, minor girl, raped 20 times a day by different people, and then a whole night a person sleeps with that girl, and that is continuing for days after days and days. The girl will be under severe depression, severe mental trauma, and they are tutored that talk in front of the police, otherwise the police will put you in jail for undertaking prostitution. So victims are not ready to come up with their situations very early, and that is why when we do training of law enforcement officers, we tell them that to give some time, involve an NGO who can undertake a counseling, give some time for addressing the mental trauma, take the statement after 2 days once the victim has understood that she is in police protection, not police custody. So these are the things which are a major challenge, and victims very slowly come up with their stories. Law enforcement officers sometimes say that mostly when because I have an experience of working in various cases, and my organization has done a lot of work in terms of working with the law enforcement officers, say that sir ये लड़की झूठ बोल रही है, इसको ये घुमा रही है बातों को, but मोस्टली देखा जाता है कि ये घुमा नहीं रहे बातों को. इट इज दे आर अंडर सिवियर स्ट्रेस, दे डोंट नो विथ whom to have faith in, and therefore they are very apprehensive. So that's a major challenge in terms of victim support. So it's a good question, Shivam, thank you for that. Red light India, the next question from Rishabh is that red light areas are legal in India or not? Yes, they are illegal. They are continuing to work, but they are illegal. What you have to understand that trafficking, prostitution is illegal in India per se. If I want to prostitute myself, there is no one stopping me. If I want to sleep with various people and take money, no one is stopping me from doing that. But once I recruit a person, once I make it an organized part, once I recruit someone else and become organized and start earning out of prostitution or running a prostitution racket, then it becomes illegal. So if one person is wanting to do prostitution on her own, on his or her own, then the law is silent on that, because the government has nothing to do as to who is sleeping with whom. But as soon as it becomes organized, one person more getting recruited and it becomes a racket, it becomes illegal. So brothels are illegal, and any place where prostitution happens is illegal. If not, why they exist? Because they have been existing for a long period of time. There is no rehabilitation program. There have been a lot of Supreme Court judgment over the years, but still the government has not come out with proper rehabilitation programs. It's still a major challenge, and till now, even in terms of child labor rehabilitation, we have been not devoting our time, devoting energies into providing skill development programs. Mostly in rehabilitation home, it's mostly candle making, beauty parlor, and all of these small businesses which don't earn money. People cannot earn money. So there are a lot of experiments now happening where people are getting provided skill and access to banks, access for identity cards, because many of these victims just don't have an identity, and therefore they are not able to become part of these systems. So providing identity to these victims, getting access to skill development program, getting access to business loans, these are some of the challenges for rehabilitation programs. in terms of Sharbana Ghosh is asking about, sir, any books or articles from where we can get an update with the new law regarding human trafficking. Yes, you can. The Ministry of Women and Child Development website has all these legislations in one place, and you can also look into the NHRC report on human trafficking, which is the most comprehensive research done by a Dr. P.M. Nair, is an IPS officer who has done a lot of work on human trafficking. And then there are also a lot of reports of country assessment report of UNODC done in 2013. There are several other publications also available in the UNODC and UNICEF websites, which are important source of information for young people who want to understand the cases of human trafficking and also understand the law. So I think that most of the questions I have covered. I would like to, if anyone has any other question, certainly I would like to get our, yeah. Any other question? Am I audible?
So we have some of the queries left in the chat box.
Yes. Are there any? Do victims, sir, what needs to be done to, I have seen news prostitutes seeking help as they were not getting customers in pandemic. Why it is so public? Yes, of course, because they are in a dire situation. And during the pandemic, most of these red light areas are closed and they cannot be allowed to work in these areas. You have to understand, I'll tell you about a Supreme Court judgment which happened in 2011. That was Buddhadev Karmaskar versus State of West Bengal. And that judgment of Markandeya Karju and Justice Gyan Sudha Mishra talked about rights of women in prostitution. The Supreme Court told that many of these women have been trafficked in various periods of their time, and now they are in this dire situation, and they have all the rights as enshrined under Article 21 of the Constitution, right to life and liberty. So with this judgment, the government is now mandated to provide all the support for rehabilitation and support, and therefore a lot of organizations were supporting these women in prostitution. Also, we have seen that the various organizations who work on AIDS control and other agencies have been providing support. So women in prostitution are also one category who need to be supported in terms of bringing them into the mainstream, and also like letting them join the society back in terms of empowerment. That has to happen, which is actually not happening. The next question I have seen, and next question is, what needs to be done to end second generation prostitution? Yes, of course, for second generation prostitution, in most of the red light areas, there are Anganwadis and Balwadis working, where students, young children are brought there, they under right to education, they get admitted in several schools. They are provided all the support from the government. We have seen a lot of these initiatives happening, and there are several NGOs working across the country who take care of their education. So there has been a sizable amount of support and help for young children of victims of prostitution. In Delhi GB Road, the Delhi High Court has given a judgment. Due to that judgment, all children of women in prostitution are provided education. In minor children are provided education then and there only, and then in terms of adult children, they are sent to different schools as per the wish of the parents or the mothers. They have been allowed to use their mother's names. They don't need to disclose their father's name. That was one of the judgments undertaken by an activist, Khairati Lal Bhola, way back in the 1990s. So second generation trafficking is a major challenge, and a lot of organizations are working on it. Yes. Any other question? How can we update ourselves with the upcoming laws and legislation? Yes, you can visit all these websites. Especially the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime is the custodian of the Palermo Protocol, which deals with human trafficking. And therefore, UNODC website will have a lot of information about all these crimes. Any other question? So,
I, on the behalf of LPUNSS, would like to extend my hearty vote of thanks to you, sir. It was really a thought-provoking address today. Thank you for being with us here today. And I would also like to thank my audience for being so cooperative. Thank you so much, everyone.
thank you. Thank you for inviting me.